Keeping up with the news. Newspapers contain news, information and advertising, and are printed on low-cost paper. They can be daily or weekly, national or local. Newspapers began about 500 years ago. The first ones were in Germany. In those days, newspapers were handwritten and used to be passed from person to person. But they weren't very different from today. They had information about wars, economic conditions, social customs and human interest features. Newspapers used to be very expensive. Poor people couldn't afford them. But in the 1800s, printing became cheaper and ordinary people could afford to buy them. The oldest newspaper still in existence was first published in Austria in 1703. The oldest newspaper in the Arab world is Al-Ahram, which started in 1876. People who write articles for a newspaper are called journalists. But no newspaper can afford to send journalists to report on all events, so they buy stories from news agencies around the world. And no newspaper has room for all the stories that happen every day. So the news editor holds a meeting where they decide what stories to publish. They also decide where the photos and advertisements will go. These days, newspapers are cheap because half the cost is paid for by advertising. A lot of people used to read a paper every day. But today fewer people are reading newspapers than before. Instead, they go online and get their news from newspaper websites. Although we now have 24-hour news on TV and online, newspapers are printed only once a day. So in the future, newspapers may put all the freshest news online and the printed newspapers will only have articles with opinions and comments.